Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Marquette Basketball Show on My 24 with our producer Jason Rook and the inestimable John Dodds. I don't know what that means, but it just sounded good, so I wanted to put it.
I'll take it.
We'll go with that today.
Okay.
I'm Tom Pippins. It's wonderful to have you with us, everyone, and we are so excited, of course, always to say that we're brought to you by Moonlight Graham, proud sponsor of the Marquette Hoops Basketball Show. Moonlight Graham, modern dental benefits. A couple of big commitments for Shaka Smart and the Marquette program this week, and John, as always, you're very timely with the guests that we have who will talk all about it. No one does it better than Mark Miller, Wisconsin Basketball Yearbook.
When we're talking about new additions to Marquette, Zade Reitzell, a transfer from Loyola of the South.
6'7", huh?
6'7", forward. He'll be a grad transfer. He'll play right away. And then they also received a commitment from Zade Lowry, the 6'4", two-guard football player, also from Missouri.
So with another year to go in high school, right?
Right. He'll be signing. He's just completed his junior year. He'll be signing in November for the 2023 class. So those are two great additions. And when we want to get information, I dial 911, and Mark Miller comes up.
He always answers, and he does it beautifully. Mark Miller, Wisconsin Basketball Yearbook, again brought to you by Moonlight Graham, modern dental benefits. Moonlight Graham, a proud sponsor of the Marquette Basketball Show. Mark, let's get right to it. Talk a little bit about the latest commitment, in particular Zade Reitzell. He brings some pretty good creds to Shaka Smart's program, doesn't he?
He does. It's a first for Marquette, having an NAIA player transfer into the program, but he's a young man that has played 4 years at Loyola University in New Orleans, led him to the national championship this year in NAIA with a 37-1 record, averaged, I think, around 17 and 8 or 9 rebounds a game, somewhere in that area. Plays really hard, got good size at 6'7", definitely more of a slasher, rebounder, putback kind of guy than a shooter, but a real high energy player that really competes on both ends of the court and is a true leader, and a terrific young man that's going to make that jump from NAIA to high major college basketball. So it'll be fascinating to see how he does. The NAIA at the level that Loyola plays at is really good, guys. It's the top of the notch, and those guys that are competing for national championships in the NAIA have all their guys on scholarship, and many of the schools have guys that have transferred in from Division I programs. Now, Zach was a guy that played, like I said, 4 years at Loyola, but it's obviously it's not the Big East, but it's still a pretty high brand of basketball. So in watching some film on Zach, if you go to the Loyola website, you can really watch any game you want from this past season. You see a guy that really has a high motor and that really can rebound the basketball, which is a thing that Marquette was a little shy on last year.
So, John, he's a 6'8" kid, right? He'll be a senior with that one more year. Seems on the surface like a Shaka Smart type of player, right? Versatility, maybe both ends of the floor.
I think he's originally from Texas, is he not, Mark? Maybe they knew about him or knew when Shaka and the staff was at Texas.
Yeah, and the assistant coach at Loyola has some ties to Shaka. I'm trying to remember if he played for him or there's some sort of connection, or if he helped maybe manage a team or something when he was younger. But so that was a connection, and then of course those guys, like all coaches, April's probably as busy a time as any for them with this new transfer portal thing. Every day brings new names and new thoughts and new possibilities for programs across the country. So they do their due diligence. You got to check on guys whether they're from another high major program that enter the transfer portal, or a kid like Zade Reitzell who's going from NAIA, or we've seen some Division II players have success at the high major level. There was a connection with Shaka to Zach, but once they got involved in looking at the young man and talking to him and watching his film and so forth, it became a really good fit, not only from a basketball perspective, but just from the type of players that Shaka likes to recruit and bring into the program and in the Marquette culture that they're building.
A couple things jump out at me with this transaction is you always want to balance and stagger your classes. And next year, looking at the roster grid, Marquette had no seniors. They had Elliott, Morcell, and Kerr graduated, but there was no juniors that became seniors. So Zach comes in and he fits in right there as a leader, someone to look up to. My first thought was someone like Caton Reinhardt, where I remember Wojo brought him in for that grad transfer last year, and he had been in the NCAA tournament before, and some of the younger players would, ask him questions, and he could show a little bit of leadership.
Right. Well, that's really important, and to have an older player, a guy that's played 4 years of college basketball and has won at a very high level. He's also, I think, a player that, sometimes when you bring in a transfer, it takes a while for them to kind of feel like they're, one of the team, so to speak. But I think with Zach coming in, with his past experience, his success, his ability to impact the game in different ways than maybe some of the current players on the program, he'll assume a very big leadership role right off the bat.
I was going to say, I remember Bo Ryan saying that if he had two players, one who just specialized in one sport, basketball, let's say, and another who is a multi-sport player, he would take the latter because of different situations and that leadership mark that you talked about. And then we find out that Zach Reitzell played football as well.
Yeah, and the recruit they have coming in that just committed yesterday, a 2023 high school player, Zade Lowry, is wide receiver on the football team in Missouri, in Springfield, Missouri, where he lives, and was being looked at as a receiver for football. So I agree, Tom. I think the toughness that you gain, the different opportunities to whether you're going to be a leader in football and basketball, or maybe you're the leader in basketball and you have to follow someone else in football, but you're still a part of the process. Those things are really important. So when you can I always felt that when you watch high school basketball players in the state of Wisconsin who have committed to the University of Wisconsin for football, I always thought those guys really brought a lot to the table. Whether it's their toughness, their size, obviously a lot of them are linemen, but just their ability to be a part of it. I always think that's really refreshing, and almost always those guys are key players and really help their team win a lot of games.
During the press conference last week regarding that topic, Pip, Shaka mentioned that Ben Gold also plays rugby. He played rugby on a team, and he had two older brothers, and the dad, as Mark said in one of our previous broadcasts, that they used to play in the driveway, and that gives you toughness. I mean, every time I look at rugby, I just kind of shake my head and say, "Wow."
That's tough. You have to be real.
Yeah,
I'm wondering, Mark, if Shaka is going to bring football back to Marquette. Who knows with these players?
Yeah, well, it's kind of interesting too. I think when you play multiple sports in this day and age, as you guys know, so many kids are specializing, particularly when it comes to basketball. They're playing basketball 12 months of the year. So they're using the same muscles and they're playing with the same kids for the most part. I mean, obviously high school and AAU, you have some different teammates, but it's the same basketball, and the culture that we have right now in basketball, maybe isn't 100% healthy when you look at all the kids in the transfer portal. So I think to diversify and participate in any other sport, whether it's cross country or soccer or football or baseball, track and field, what have you, is a good thing. Rugby, that's a good thing because it shows that you're not just one dimensional and that you can learn things and be a part of some fun things in addition to being a really good basketball player.
Plus, when you talk to trainers, they'll say that if you play baseball or soccer or do something else, you use different muscles. It's maybe
Right.
bad to specialize when you're 10 years old, and by the time you're 20, you might have back issues or something. So it's good to do that. Getting back, I want to ask another question about, or just have a comment on Zach, the transfer from Loyola. When you look at his game, it looks like he gives you something that they don't have, and that's kind of an intermediate game. He's not a three-point shooter, but they have Joplin, they have Cam Jones, they have guys that can launch. I think some of the new guys, Chase Ross, can launch. But he gives you kind of the intermediate 15-foot jumper, kind of the slasher to the hoop. Did you see that too?
Yeah, definitely. He only took. I know he didn't shoot well from three, but he only took a very small number last year, and they played 30. I'm trying to think if they're 37-1 or 27-1, but he played a whole ton of games. So he was on the floor a lot, and that's just not his game. And like you said, John, Marquette's got guys that can shoot from the perimeter. So to have that other option available to maybe create with the spacing shooters around him, he can slash the basket and hopefully get some offensive rebounds. When you watched Marquette last year, it seemed like offensive rebounding was non-existent at times. And of course, if you make 1 out of 2 shots, you're doing great. So there's going to be offensive rebounds, in every game. So hopefully that will be an area that he can provide a lift for Marquette. And I think his activity on defense with his length and his ability to move and be athletic is going to be an asset too. I think we saw last year how valuable Omax was on the defensive end of the floor because of his length and ability to move. And, I think Zach, could end up being a really good defender and also be a guy on Shaka's press that could be valuable as well. So you're not going to see him shoot a lot of threes, but hopefully you'll see him rebound the ball a lot and just be a hard-nosed, tough competitor. Someone like a Jay Crowder that just gets after it every single game and helps your team win just by his tenacity.
Yeah, Ben Steele interviewed him, and he kind of echoed, or he admitted, the move from the NAIA to the Big East. He had some concerns about it. It's a challenge for him, and there's an unknown.
Sure.
I know a lot of Marquette fans on our message board were echoing NAIA, but I just remember Ryan Hawkins from Creighton last year. He came from, was it Northwest Missouri State or
Yes.
one of the Missouri D2, I think, schools, and he was one of the dominant players in the Big East. So it can happen.
Sure it can. Max Struz from DePaul a few years back, who's playing for the Heat right now and doing really well. He came from Lewis University to DePaul and then sent to the NBA. Dick Bennett always used to say good basketball knows no divisions. And he was referring, primarily to high school at the time, but I think good basketball players know no divisions either. When you look, the NBA doesn't care if you're from a high major program, a low major program, a mid major, a D2, an NAI. If you're good, they'll find you, and if you're good, you're going to be able to compete at a higher level. And I think just Zach's motor itself is gonna allow him to be an impact player. Just the fact that he's older and the fact that he competes so hard and that he rebounds, he does things that Marquette maybe was a little shy on this past year at certain times during the season. Those things are going to allow him to earn a spot. And of course, he'll get here early enough, guys, where he'll be able to get in the weight program and get into school and get accustomed to Milwaukee and to Marquette, and of course to play pickup games and workouts with the guys. Hopefully it's going to be a situation where it might be a little bit of an initial, I wouldn't say shock, but just initial kind of learning experience for him to compete against the guys like Osa and David Joplin and so forth on the front line. But he'll find his way. When practice starts up for real next fall. Hopefully he'll be ready to go.
Mark Miller, Wisconsin Basketball Yearbook, simply the best when it comes to recruits and breaking down talent. You answered my question, impact player. That's all they need to have. I think Marquette players will look forward to the fellow who can come in there, Zach Reitzell, and make a difference right away. 6'4", 180, and now we're into Zade Lowry. What kind of a player is Marquette getting?
Well, this is a guy that Marquette really targeted heavily. I was talking to one of the high school coaches from I think it's Kickapoo High School where he plays in Springfield. There, it's a school of about 1,600 kids. So they have 6 classes in Missouri. And when Zade was a sophomore, they won the state championship, beating Jason Tatum's old high school in the title game. And he, anyway, the coach from his high school just raved about how Marquette went about recruiting Zade, how they recruited him absolutely by far and away the hardest of any of the other programs. Whether it was assistant coach Neil Berry, certainly head coach Shaka Smart, they were all in on Zade and have been for a while now, after seeing him, on the AAU circuit last year. So this is a guy that they really wanted. So that tells you something right off the bat. This is a guy that they felt really fit what they are about, in terms of a program builder, and then also in terms of his ability, obviously. At 6'4", he's a guy that shot 38% from 3 as a junior. That's probably something you'll want to see increase to, maybe 42, 43% as a senior. But he's also super athletic. So he's a guy that can drive to the basket and finish way above the rim. So he's got the slashing ability as well. Averaged around 15 a game last year, about 8 rebounds. So, very active and very productive. Had offers from other schools, including Missouri State, which is right down the road from where he lives, and Kansas State. Kansas and the new coach at Missouri are beginning to show interest, but Missouri is kind of going junior college transfer route right now to kind of build their program up with the new coach. And I think the legwork that Marquette did was very, very impressive. And I think he's a great fit in terms of his the kind of player Shaka likes, with length and athleticism. But more important than that is the fit that he brings in terms of the type of kid he is. Everybody that I talked to, from the assistant coach at his high school to a couple of the media guys who do what I do in Missouri, pretty much just raved about who he is as a young man. Very polite, very respectful. Played JV his first half of his sophomore year before being moved up to varsity, and was fine with that. Didn't have any parents calling the coach complaining. Now, guys, when they're, it's great. Hey, they think my son needs to be in varsity, right away off the bat. And of course, when we were growing up, if you were in 9th grade and were on varsity, you had to be something very special or 7 feet tall. So yeah, that's I think they're very excited about getting him, and that's it's going to be interesting to see now. They obviously Zach Reitzell will play next year and then graduate, so Zade will come in, and then they would still be at 13 scholarships if Justin Lewis comes back. Now, even if Justin comes back and goes to the NBA a year from now, they could still give out one more scholarship. So they're remaining very active. Marquette coaches in the 2023 class. As you guys know, rosters are fluid. There's guys entering the portal every day, even now. I think they have till May 1st to do that. So you never stop recruiting. Even if your roster's full, you always have to keep your eyes open. And Zade's a guy that Marquette has followed, like I said, exceptionally close. He was a very, very high priority on their list, and they made it known to him and his family that was the case. And they got the commitment yesterday, which is great, because I think a lot of schools right now are so locked in on the portal. They have 2 or 3 roster openings for next year, and they got to get guys for next year that they're not able to spend as much time, unfortunately for the high school kids, on the 2023 class. Well, Marquette is at 13 scholarships right now if Justin Lewis comes back, so that's the limit. They were able to get out and watch Zade and really follow him closely during the first live period earlier in April, and that was an advantage, I think, that Marquette's a little ahead of the game in terms of their roster makeup right now, so they could put that time in on the 2023 kids.
Zade Lowry, you always want him to be, as you say, I get the blender out when I'm describing people, but
No, really?
yeah, I do.
I didn't know that.
But Mark always follows up with, John, just let them be themselves, kind of a thing, which Mark's a lot nicer than I am. But when I look at this guy, I'm thinking like a Daryl Morcell type of player down the line, maybe a little bit more athletic, but I can see there was one tape of him being interviewed after he caught 3 touchdown passes and had 201 yards receiving. So he was the athlete of the week on this podcast down in Missouri. So he's an interesting guy, but he had that look of Daryl Morcell, where Daryl Morcell is kind of, what are you looking at? Kind of he's kind of look at you, and he was the kind of the big brother. As Shaka said to the team this year, but it's going to be interesting to see him develop, and we'll see more tape of him obviously this summer. But when I'm looking at so he'll be signing next November, early signing for the 2023 class, Zade Lowry. But when we look at next year's team, we see the 2022 class coming in. They'll be coming in late May or early, right around June. And there's Sean Jones, the point guard, Chase Ross, the 2 guard, Ben Gold, who we talked about last week. He's signed. He's the swing forward. But the one guy that, and then obviously Reitzell, who's coming in. But the one guy that's kind of off the radar is Kian Atirjere. And he redshirted last year. He flashes talent. He won the slam dunk contest at the Madness last year. So that tells you something based on if you can beat Omax and Kerr and some of the other and Morcell, because some of the other players. But can you talk about him and what the coaches have mentioned?
Well, you're right. He's very athletic. He's got good size, and pretty good strength. You know that he's got a year under his belt in the Marquette strength and training program. But he hasn't played yet in a college basketball game. So, we see him warm up. He's obviously able to practice with the team last year. So those are all good things. He seemed very engaged on the bench. I think that's a plus. He was definitely watching and learning and cheering on his teammates. What's he going to bring as a player? That's a great question. I don't really know. You're right. He is kind of a mystery. Other than the fact that we know he's a forward, he's got good size. I think they list him at 6'9", and he's got looking at his body and so forth. He's got good physical strength. And then the other thing that jumps out to you is that he's super athletic. I mean, he can get up in that square really easily, whether he's blocking shots or putting down a dunk or battling for a rebound. And obviously losing Kurt Queth, you're going to need that size, hopefully a little shot blocking ability around the basket, and then more rebounding. Rebounding was an area that we talked about at length here, but they definitely need to improve on. So, what Reitzell and Keenan can hopefully help in those areas. So, how's he going to factor into the playing rotation? What kind of a game does he bring? How is he going to help the team? All to be determined. But he won't be redshirted next year, so he'll have every opportunity to earn playing time. And, with 13 guys on scholarship, it's hard to play everyone. But, with the frontline departure, of Kurt Queth, I think he'll get every opportunity to Shaka rotated Kurt Queth and Iguodaro last year. Maybe Keenan can step into that role and rotate with Iguodaro, next season. We'll just have to wait and see. But certainly he'll be given that opportunity.
Mark, if you would, just as we start to round third, head for home, if you will, this class overall, how do you see them fitting in the future when we look back on these players as much as you possibly can at this juncture? And in particular, will they be a better rebounding team? Obviously, that was a great weakness leading right through to the humbling loss to North Carolina in the first round of the Big Dance.
Right. Yeah. I mean, offensive rebounding was really poor, and then just rebounding in general was not great. And yet, they made the tournament, and they had 2 wins over Villanova, Final Four team, and I thought overall the first year exceeded expectations. My expectations when you look at their roster of what they had in Woodrow's last year, and then in Shaka's first year, so many newcomers and so forth. So certainly was no doom and gloom, and I know that's not what you meant, Tom, but it's hard to say. It's always hard to say. I mean, we will know when they get here and when they start competing. And you look at a kid like Stevie Mitchell in the current freshman class. I thought by the end of the year he was playing his best basketball, but it took him a while to get there. Cam Jones maybe had a bigger splash earlier, and then toward the end maybe wasn't shooting it quite as well. Unless you're a guy like Marcel or Kerr that comes in with 3-4 years of college experience already under your belt, where okay, Daryl Moorstar's played in the Big Ten. He was the Big Ten defensive player of the year. He's not going to have a huge adjustment to playing at Marquette and playing in the Big East, other than learning a new system, his role, and so forth. But when he gets out on the floor, he's going to compete. He's going to hold his own. With these 3 freshmen coming in, I think the one that kind of stands out a little bit in terms of making an immediate impact might be Sean Jones at the point guard position, just because of his physical strength and just his overall ability. So, Tom, I think to really just answer the question, I guess we'll know in 4 years for sure.
Yeah, right.
But
well said.
If I could make one prediction right now, I would say that I think Sean Jones is going to get on the floor, quite a bit as a freshman.
Boy, we appreciate the comments of Mark Miller. He is clutch at all times. Wisconsin Basketball Yearbook, brought to you by Moonlight Graham, proud sponsor of the Marquette Basketball Show. Moonlight Graham, modern dental benefits. I love what you have to share, and it's just as it relates to website and what have you, kind of adding to this show you've put together where you have so many components, from recruiting to assessing talent to the historical part of Marquette basketball, John?
Sure. Marquette Hoops is our website, marquettehoops.com. It's part of CBS Digital on the 24/7 network. If Marquette fans want to be kept abreast of updates, new players, articles that we have, and just a list of our guests coming up on future shows, just go to our front page and go to the widget and just drop your email address in, and you'll be eligible for our free newsletter. So there it is. Just drop your email right in there, click sign up, and there it is.
All righty. Great to be with you again. Shall we do it next Saturday at 10:30?
Let's do it.
All righty, everybody. Wonderful to be with you again. For John Dodds, our producer Jason Ruck, I'm Tom Pippins. The Marquette Hoops Basketball Show, brought to you by Moonlight Graham, proud sponsor of the program. Moonlight Graham, modern dental benefits. Until next week, go Marquette. God bless. Thanks for tuning in.